Well, we are in this series, and we are actually wrapping it up this weekend, called Asking for a Friend. And the whole idea is that many of us have questions. Maybe we don't want to ask them, and make it our question. So we're like, I have a question for a friend. And so what we did is at Easter, we had everyone who wanted to could text in a question. We received hundreds and hundreds of questions. And then we took and we put them into categories. And so all this month, in the month of May, we've been trying to answer and approach the questions that you asked in these categories, but this is the problem. We've run out of weekends, all right? And there's still a lot more questions. Well, let me say two things to that. Number one, a lot of your questions were very, very specific questions about specific circumstances. And if you have those kind of questions, I want to encourage you, get in a life group. And here's the reason why. Those are great places to ask those kind of questions and have dialogues about those specific situations. So it's a shameless plug, but get in a life group, and I will tell you, those are great environments to ask those questions. Second thing is this: do not despair if your question or the subject that you asked about was not answered during this series, because here's the reason why. I'm keeping a list of these questions on my desk, and throughout the rest of the year, we are going to approach a lot of these questions in different series. Like, for example, there were hundreds of questions, and many of them were on relationships. And so, you know what? We're going to do a relationship series, and I'm going to use a lot of those questions to kind of create content, you could say. So even though we've run out of weekends, listen, keep on coming around City First. You're going to see a lot of these questions are going to be approached throughout the rest of the year. Well, today I want to talk about a subject that many of you ask questions about, and that is this. I want to talk about how to have faith when all seems to be lost. And what I mean by that is this. You had a lot of questions about, I'm going through this in my marriage, I'm going through this in my health journey, I'm going through this in my job or career or my finances, and I feel like I'm at a dead end. I feel like all hope is lost. I don't know what to do. I want to give up. Again, a lot of questions that kind of like revolved around that idea of feeling like you are at the end of your rope. And so I want to talk about that today. And I want to talk about, this subject of when you feel like all hope is lost. In fact, I will say this, that as I read these questions, my heart went out to you. And even though I don't know who it was that texted in the questions because it was anonymous, I felt like I got a glimpse into many of your struggles. And as I was reading and praying about it today, I was like, God, I want to give a very important teaching about how to have faith when all hope is lost. Because there are many of you that are finding yourself at that age and stage, you could say, in your life. And so I'm going to talk about that today. And I have a question. How many of you like TV shows or YouTube videos that are like documentaries about nature? Anybody like watching? Like, I'm fascinated about documentaries about nature, and I don't watch a lot of them. But when I do, it's like I just get dialed into this thought about this amazing world that God created. So I was watching this documentary one time, and it was about a giraffe, all right? And it was giraffes, and this one giraffe was pregnant. It was the mama giraffe, and she is giving birth to the baby giraffe. And by the way, giraffes give birth standing up. I mean, that's kind of crazy, right? And so anyway, she gives birth to this baby giraffe, and here's this baby giraffe, and immediately, I thought this was interesting, the mom took its big neck, her big neck, and began to nudge the baby and basically prod the baby to immediately get up. Now think about this, you were just born, and now all of a sudden you need to stand, right? And so the mama was like prodding the baby, and then the baby struggled and wobbled and got to its feet. And then the strangest thing happened. The mom turned away from the baby and kicked it over. No joke. I'm thinking maybe that's because the mom is like, do you know what you put me through? I don't know. But all I can say is the baby goes, boom, hits the dirt. And then the mom goes back over, and with its neck, her neck begins to prod the baby again, and pretty soon the baby gets wobbly and stands to its feet, and then the mom did it again, turned her back and kicked the baby over. I'm like, this is really interesting. Well, then again, the mom takes its neck and begins to prod the baby, and the baby begins to stand up. And a third time, again, the mom turns around, kicks the baby over. But the craziest thing happened on the third time, and it was this, is that the baby, when it fell over, began to wobble and get up on its own. And I thought to myself, you see, what the mother giraffe was doing was training the newborn a very, very important lesson. And that is this: only when you get knocked down can you learn to use the muscles needed to stand up. Some of you know where I'm going today. Some of you know what is going to happen here is that the baby had to get knocked down to learn how to use the muscles on how to stand up. And today, put on your seatbelts, because I'm about ready to tell you that many of you have been knocked down. It is because God is teaching you how to use the muscle of faith, how to get back up again. And I'm going to talk to you and give you principles on getting back up. No matter how hopeless life seems, that there is a thing called faith that we need to build in our lives. In fact, when it comes to our spiritual life, strength is faith. Strength is faith. Now, let me go ahead and show you here a verse that is found in 1 John chapter 5, verse 4, and it is this: you see, every child of God overcomes the world. Our faith is the victorious power that triumphs over the world. Two things are said in this verse that is very important. Number one, it says that every child of God will overcome. Now hear that. It means that inside of you, God has given you the strength and the ability and the potential to overcome whatever hell has thrown in your path. Do you hear that? So first of all, you will overcome. Secondly, it is through faith. It is through faith. Faith is what gives you the power to overcome. So how do we build our strength and become stronger? How do we build our faith? Today, I'm going to talk about the process. I'm going to talk about the process. It was about 3 weeks ago, I had the privilege of being able to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with a group of about 20 pastors, and we got to meet with the coach of Alabama, Nick Saban. We got to spend a half an hour with him and ask him questions about leadership. And you know what he kept on coming back to? He kept on coming back to the process. Now, up here in Illinois, we don't really care that much about Alabama, can I be honest with you? In Florida, you're a part of the SEC. I mean, it's a religion down there, right? And I will tell you this, that we got to go with Nick Saban, who's probably an elite coach, if not the elite coach. And I know those of you that are maybe part of LSU or other places, you all of a sudden just started to hate on me, but go with me on this, all right? He actually has more first-round draft picks than what he has losses, all right, in the last few years. So this is the thing. When you look at Nick Saban, he's talking all about the process. And I thought about this when it came to us here at City First. When it comes to faith, it's all about the process. It is not a prayer. Now, it does require prayer, but some of you think I can build my faith by praying a prayer. It is not just a prayer. It is a process of building faith. And if you don't understand the process, you may get discouraged. You may actually resent God for the circumstances in your life. You may become fearful. And definitely, if you don't understand process, you don't know how to align your life with God's plan. So I want you to think today about working out in a gym. Now, some of you don't work out in a gym, but even if you don't work out, you're going to get this analogy in this word picture, all right? Because in a gym, there are different types of machines, different workout machines, different stations. Some stations, they work out your legs. Some stations work out your arms. Some stations work out your core. All right, there's different types of exercises that work out different parts of your body. And in the same way that there's stations to work out your physical body, there are stations to working out faith. In fact, there are 6 of them. Now, some of you are like, really? Yes. If you look in the Word of God and all the stories in the Bible of great men and women of God that had to build their faith, most of them went through 6 stations. Today, I want you to listen real closely to me because I'm going to give you very specific steps on how to build your faith. This is not going to be some ambiguous rhetoric. Instead, I'm going to give you specifics. You're going to leave here, you're going to know exactly what to do to build your faith. Okay, are you ready for this? All right, so this is the thing. As you are listening today, you're going to think, I'm at that station. That's the station that I'm at. Or you may be in another one. Or if you walk with God for a long time, you've probably been to all 6 stations at one point in your life. So here's the first station, the dream. The dream is the first station. It's the beginning of faith. You see, you have a desire in your heart. You have a concept in your mind, a vision of what your marriage could be, a goal of where you want to be in your career, an ambition when it comes to your finances. You have in your sights a target. God gives you a dream, a better picture of your tomorrow than of your today. In fact, God gave many people in the Bible dreams. He gave Abram, and soon to be Abraham, a dream of being a great father of a great nation. He gave Joseph a dream about being a leader that would deliver his people. He gave Moses a dream of being a deliverer of God's people that were in slavery to Egypt and bringing them to the promised land. You know what? He gave Esther a dream of being a rescuer for God's people. He gave David a dream of being a king. He gave Mary a dream of giving birth to the Messiah and raising the Son of God. He gave Jesus a dream of coming to earth and saving those who are lost. God is in the dream-giving business. Do you hear that? In fact, all of us must have a dream. We must have a God dream for our lives, because if there is no dream, there is no self-esteem. It requires a dream to have purpose. There has to be a picture of my life has purpose. Therefore, I am aiming my life at something, and God gives dreams. I love what it says in Ephesians, a book in the New Testament. Paul writes to the church in Ephesus, "Never doubt God's mighty power to work in you and accomplish all this. He will achieve infinitely more than your greatest request." I mean, do you hear that? When you pray to God and you're like, God, I desire a better marriage. God, I desire a better career. God, I desire a greater influence in my life. I desire this, I desire that. Guess what? He wants to give you something infinitely more than what you even request. Your most unbelievable dream, this translation says, and exceed your wildest imagination. He'll outdo them all, for his miraculous power constantly energizes you. First stage is the dream. Second stage is determination. Determination is the second workout, and that's where you begin to put the dream in motion. You begin to sacrifice for the dream. It's what gets you up in the morning. It's what makes you, kind of like work hard. You work towards something. I think of our son Connor, who actually was just up here on the stage here at Spring Creek on the main stage playing guitar. I think of Connor a few years ago. He had a dream of learning guitar. And so he got himself a guitar and he began to go on YouTube, and he's completely self-taught. In fact, he learned how to play guitar from YouTube. And you know what? He has a talent, he has a desire, but he began to just watch YouTube videos, and he began to watch other people play guitar, and he began to ask questions, and he began to play guitar. And now he loves it. In fact, last summer, he had a job working landscape, and every single Monday through Friday, he left the house before 6 a.m. He didn't get home until after 6 p.m., 12-hour days, because he wanted to save up enough money to buy a guitar. In fact, today, the guitar that he has is one of the guitars that he was saving up to buy. And the reason why is because he's driven, because he has a dream. There is a determination. Abraham decided to leave the security of his homeland and go to a foreign land because God told him that's where the dream was going to come true. Moses decided to listen to a burning bush and obey God. Esther decided to speak to power. Joseph decided to live a life of conviction and to flee from temptation. Mary decided to believe an angel. You see, Jesus decided to come from heaven down to earth in the form of a man and humble himself. There is a determination needed for your dream. I will tell you, out of every 10 dreamers, there's only one decision maker most of the time. In fact, it was interesting. Nick Saban said this to us. He goes, nowadays he sees that only 10% of the people that are coming to him want to be developed. Isn't that interesting? Because we live in a society where we like to dream, but we don't want to put in the determination to fulfill the dream. And if we don't put in the determination, then the dream is just a wish. Do you hear that? So there has to be a determination. So you ask God this, God, what is the decision I need to make to accomplish the dream? You have to ask that at this stage. Now, can I be honest for a moment? These first two stations, these are the easy workouts. This is kind of the warm-up reps, you could say. You're like, really? Oh, yeah. Because now, the next few stations, it becomes harder. This is where the weight comes on. This is where the resistance begins to increase, where you really begin to build the muscle of faith. The third station is delay. Delay. No one likes to be delayed. If you are in an airport and all of a sudden you look up on the marquee and you see that your flight is delayed, you don't get up and jump up and down for joy. Instead, you're like, oh, delay. Can I tell you this? God is under no obligation to fulfill the dream in your time frame. He's not. In fact, we get frustrated with God because we want the dream to be fulfilled within our time frame, but he's under no obligation to do that. You see, faith really begins to be developed when there is a delay. You have the dream, you start putting forward a determination, but then comes the delay. And I love what it says in Habakkuk, which is an Old Testament book. And when was the last time you heard a sermon preached out of Habakkuk, right? It's actually a really good book. It says this. The message I give you, God says, waits for the time I have appointed. It speaks about what is going to happen, and all of it will come true. It might take a while, but there's that word, the W word, but wait for it. You can be sure it will come. It will happen when I want it to, says the Lord. Wait. Wait. Isn't it awkward? Waiting is awkward. It's frustrating. When the voice stops speaking, when you stop feeling like the dream is going to happen, you're in a delay season. Abraham waited 99 years before the promised son arrived. You know, you look at it, Moses waited 40 years wandering around in the desert before he was able to lead the children of Israel out of slavery. Joseph was delayed 13 years between the dream before he entered into the palace. Esther had to wait for her appointed time for such a time as this. David waited many years between he was anointed king and actually took the throne. Mary had to wait for Jesus to be born. Jesus himself waited 30 years before his ministry began. Wait. I hate waiting rooms. I don't like them. But guess what? Life is full of them. Life is full of waiting rooms where we must sit while the dream is delayed. Why do we wait? Well, I think there's 3 reasons why. Number 1, this is where we learn to trust God. Up until this point, our determination is what's moving the football down the field. But guess what? When we are delayed, now we got to trust God. Second reason is this. Sometimes I believe the enemy is trying to abort out the dream. He's trying to fight the dream. He doesn't want to see the dream come true for your life. He wants to see you be miserable. The third reason is this, is because God is putting everything in motion in his perfect timing. And his ways are higher than our ways. Can I tell you this? Delay is not the same as denial. God saying wait is not the same as God saying no. All right, do you hear that? In fact, I believe there could be a fourth reason for delay, and that is this. You are not ready yet for the responsibility that the dream will bring. In fact, sometimes we are the ones that are delaying the dream because we have to be developed, because the dream carries a great responsibility. The bigger the dream, the bigger the responsibility. So therefore, we must be ready. God is not going to hand us a dream that we cannot handle, you could say. So this is when faith begins to grow. The fourth station is this: difficulty. So we went from like the dream to determination to delay, and now we're at difficulty. We are regressing, aren't we? Or at least it feels like it, but actually we're progressing. You see, difficulty is where many of you were at when you texted in your questions. I could read through the questions. You were saying, I'm having trouble, I have a dream for a better marriage, but we're in a season of difficulty. I have a dream for a better job, but right now I'm in this job and I hate it. I have a dream for a better family, but right now, my son is MIA and will not return my phone calls. I have a dream for a better relationship or friendship or whatever. You fill in the blank, but you're encountering difficulty. So not only are you delayed now you're encountering difficulty. It's like almost like adding insult to injury, you could say, right? Abraham had difficulty. Adam did too. Moses had difficulty. Esther had difficulty. David, Joseph, Mary, definitely Jesus encountered difficulties. So here we are, we're delayed, and now all of a sudden difficulties come. It is gonna happen, it's a part of life. The weight is getting heavier in this season, right? See, this station of working out is a hard one. I love what the Apostle Peter said in 1 Peter, and he writes this: so be truly glad. Now, this is upside down thinking. Why would you be glad during difficulty? He said, be truly glad. There is a wonderful joy ahead, even though you must endure many trials for a little while. These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. So Peter is saying, listen, have joy, because someday payday is coming for the disciplined obedience that you have right now. Payday will come someday for your obedience. And so this, if you are in a season of difficulty, this is my advice to you, all right? Don't give up, grow up. Now some of you are like, well, that kind of hurts my feelings. I'd rather hurt your feelings than have life obliterate them. All right? This is the thing. Some of us were encountering difficulty. It is hard. It is difficult. All right. This is where we must grow in our faith. This is where our adolescent faith needs to become mature faith. This is where we begin to say, God, I understand you're putting more weight on me right now. Life is putting more weight. The difficulty is big. But guess what? I'm going to work out my faith twice as hard. I'm going to grow in my faith. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to grow up in my faith. This is a season for you to grow. And then the next station comes, dead end. You're like, wow, this is becoming more depressing as the morning goes on. No, it's not over yet. But I'm telling you, you study the stories of the people in the Word of God, you're going to see this. Dream, determination, all of a sudden they hit a delay, then difficulty, and then they come to a dead end. They come to a dead end. All hope is lost. Some of you texted in, you're right here at this station. All hope is lost. The dream is dead. There is no hope. You feel like it's over. Whatever it is that your dream was of a better marriage, a better life, a better career, a better financial picture, better health, whatever it is, you're like, the dream is done. I love what the Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians. We think you ought to know, he writes to his friends in Corinth, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure. How many of you felt that before? Crushed and overwhelmed beyond your ability to endure. And we thought we would never live through it. I mean, they literally meant that. They thought they were literally going to die. But some of us feel that way, right? In fact, we expected to die, he said. But as a result, as a result, that's a transitional statement there. Everything before that was like, here's what happened, and then, but as a result. So what was the byproduct? What was what came out of that season? It says this: we stopped relying on ourselves and learned to rely only, that word only is so important, only on God who raises the dead. You hear that? We stopped relying on ourselves. That actually gives me some hope. This is deep into Paul's ministry, and he still relied on himself to a certain degree. We all fight that, right? That we think, oh, we can work our way out of this, we can think our way out of this, we can, shuck and jive our way out of this, whatever. But here's Paul, and he goes, you know what? We stopped relying on ourselves. We learned to rely only on God, who, by the way, raises the dead. Dead ends have different names. Dead ends have names like divorce, bankruptcy, cancer, layoffs, infertility, rejection, depression. You see, dead ends feel hopeless, don't they? These are seasons when it's like things are out of your control. No matter how hard you try, you can't change the circumstances. You're lying flat on your back. But can I tell you something? When you're lying flat on your back, there's only one perspective, and that is to look to heaven. You hear that? There's only one perspective. You look to heaven. You're not looking at yourself. If you look at yourself, you are going to be disappointed. If you look to others, you will be disheartened. If you look to God, you will find strength. See, when you're on your back, when you're at your dead end moment, you can put your life in reverse and live in the past, or you can put it in four-wheel drive and say, God, we are forging a new road. See, and what God is doing in this season is he is saying, rely on me, let go. Let go of the reins, let go of the steering wheel, let go of the control switch. Let me be in charge 100% in this situation. But then comes the sixth station of faith, and that is deliverance. You see, it gets good at the end. It gets good at the end. Deliverance. This is where God comes to the rescue. It's where he comes to rescue. I love it says in Psalms 27, yet I totally trust you to rescue me one more time, the psalmist says, so that I can see once again how good you are while I am still alive. Abraham would tell us that we serve a God that takes barrenness and turns it into a nation, but it was God who did the work, right? You see, Joseph would say that we serve a God who turns prisons into palaces, but it was God who did the work and came to the rescue. You know, it would be an individual like Mary or Esther. Let's say Esther. Esther would say God takes a nobody and makes them into nobility, but it was God who positioned her. Mary says that, take a little girl who's 12 to 14 years old and was a part of a miraculous virgin birth, who that birth changed the entire world, right? Because Jesus was born. Jesus would say this, that we serve a God who turns crucifixions into resurrections. You hear that? Because there's the power of God that raised him from the dead. So, deliverance comes. And we may find ourselves in a place where life kicks us over. This is just an opportunity for us to exercise the muscle of faith and begin to learn how to stand again. You're going to go through all 6 of these seasons at one point, all 6 of these stations building your faith. Do not get discouraged, because the last station is the best station. That is the station of deliverance. And God will come to the rescue. Don't give up. God will come to the rescue. So before we transition here, and before we go into our last bit before we dismiss, how many of you would say, with eyes open and in a second hand raised, that you have found yourself in one of these 6 stations of faith? How many of you say you identify? Yeah, look around the room, right? Every location, right? I mean, come on. We all are there. You know what? You're in good company, and here's the reason why. Read about any man or woman of God in the Bible, and they were at one of these stations of faith at some point. So you're in great company. Great company. I'm going to pray for you guys, continuing, not just now, but I'm going to pray for you guys over these questions, because I'm wanting your faith to be built, realizing that you are not in a place of hopelessness. You may be in a place of delay or difficulty or dead end, but guess what? Deliverance is going to come.